Hi, it's May Bush here from Career Mastery. And today we want to talk about virtual meetings because the world is now changed from having these meetings that are in person, which are these great opportunities to show up. We know exactly how to do an in-person meeting, but virtual meetings, we're on camera. It's a totally different experience. And in fact, we are now broadcasting our meetings. And that's why I have invited Esther Stanhope to join me. Esther is a former broadcaster. She was at BBC for 20 years. She's also someone who's worked with top global managers and leaders on how they can make an impact and come across with charisma and confidence in conference calls. And she's also written an award-winning book called Goodbye Glossophobia, which is about exactly this, how to banish the fear of public speaking. And I'm told that all of the marvelous tips that she shares there are highly relevant in this virtual world that we now live in. So welcome, Esther, and I'm really excited to have you here to share your knowledge.
Hi, May. How are you? You're looking great today. You look like you're a professional broadcaster.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, now people are expected to be like a television presenter, a TV host for their meetings that normally we'd go to a boardroom, we're dressed smartly, you walk in, you have chit chat. Now we've got to do it virtually. And a lot of the time we've done conference calls. Most people do many conference calls. But what's happening is that now Zoom and WebEx and WebJam and Blue Jeans and Powwow and there's many platforms entering our own homes. And it
That's
can
right.
be quite tricky. Yeah.
That's right. And it's not coming to a theater near you, it's coming to a home office space near you, right?
Yeah. So I would say that one of the main things, and I've been doing webinars, and I did a live webinar this week, and there were 700 people on the call, and I've done different types of webinars and interviews and broadcasts, and I've been speaking to hundreds of people and doing polls as well, asking people, what do they find most difficult? But there are three main mistakes that we are all making, including us today, when we got a different link. We were clicked on the wrong link, weren't we?
Yes. And and I have to say that it was my link that was at issue, not Esther's, because Esther, you are the pro. I thought I was a pro, but I'm kind of lowercase pro then.
Okay, well, listen, you're not alone. And May, you are not alone. The main thing people are getting wrong, the main mistakes, is all to do with the tech. Let's talk tech. So just very briefly, I'm actually going to create a little mini Zoom, the daily Zoom updates for my social media, because I'm getting all these stories from people and I'm experiencing it myself. Things are just going wrong. And the thing is, when you first try to drive a car, you don't know where the indicator is. When you first go to meeting, or you first try Zoom, you don't know where the chat is, you don't know what to press on. But one of the funniest technical problems, apart from dialing in early, which is really important, is I saw this on Instagram today, and I'm actually going to press share so I can just show you this picture briefly. Somebody was using Microsoft Teams, and they're having a meeting with their boss, and it says, "My boss turned herself into a potato on our Microsoft Teams meeting and can't figure out how to turn the setting off. So she was stuck like a potato for the entire meeting." And to me, I love that. Your boss is a potato for the entire meeting. I don't know what that says about your credibility, but the point is, I'm not quite sure how to turn that setting off. I'm actually going to go and turn myself into a potato just to see. But there's all kinds of trinkets and clicks and novelty backgrounds and things that you can do, and the tech really is driving us crazy. All I can say is this: when I was at the BBC, the tech always let us down very regularly behind the scenes, because it's human error as much as wires, and you can have an uplink and a downlink and a satellite link that just fails you. What about you, May? Have you had technical issues apart from sending the wrong link out, which is very common?
Oh, never. Of course, yes. I mean, and I think the thing that you're talking about is that the key is that you've really got to practice. And my father, who's 80 something now, even he's out there practicing. I really admire him because he'd never heard of Zoom, hadn't really done much on video conference calls. And now all of a sudden he has to set up a call for 10 other scientists. And so what he did was he invited, well, first he had a little private tutorial with me. He said, "Hey, can you get on with me and see if I can play around with it and learn how to use it?" And then on top of that, he has set up a family Zoom so that he can practice being the host. So we're all going to have a family Zoom over the weekend in about a week's time. And yeah, so that's the level that you're talking about, I think, right? Getting familiar with the tech.
Absolutely, and respect to your dad for setting that up. So my mum is going to have her first proper family Zoom with us tonight, because last week I had to try and get her to join the family Zoom on WhatsApp because she couldn't figure out how to use Zoom. And my brother's been visiting her and staying in the garden while he's telling her what to do on her laptop. So we're all doing family Zooms, and there are some horror sites, I must say that, but it's really important to practice. My big tip about tech and practice is find a co-pilot. You need a buddy, somebody that can help you, somebody that you can help. And actually, if you're doing a more sophisticated style webinar, like we're doing a short piece of film today, May.
Yeah.
So we are effectively the pilot and the co-pilot, or we're co-presenters today.
Exactly.
So much easier to have a co-pilot. So whether it's somebody that practices with you or somebody that controls the techie stuff while you're speaking, that is the biggest tip that I've taken away for the last 2 weeks, because before I did think that I could easily do webinars on my own without a co-pilot. I've realized actually to do the tech properly, get a co-pilot. And also, if it's just simply conference calls, big tip, dial in at least 3, 4, 5 minutes early. Dial in early, because by the time it takes you to press go for the link to go up and to go, oh, have you got the software, or wait for the room to be free, and then you see yourself on video and you know you're panicking. Look, being in a panic is never good for a meeting, so just get there early. Yeah.
So is that the second mistake people make? So the first one is not knowing your own tech, right?
Yeah.
The tech. And the second one is not dialing in early.
Yeah, not dialing in early is another mistake people make. They dial in and then they find they've got it's kind of related to tech. They've got technical problems and then they can't find the list, and then they're trying to email the person. But by the time they've done that, it's 6-7 minutes past the meeting time. So dialing in early, and if you're doing quite a sophisticated webinar setup, dial in 10 minutes early. Just see if the uplink works. You can check your internet link. It's a really, really good tip.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the second tip is dialing early, and that's the second issue that people get wrong. So the third mistake people make is something very simple that you can adopt immediately, which is, how do you end your call? Because I've been hearing lots of stories of people, it's quite difficult to find the end button and where it says leave meeting on the Zoom platform.
Yeah.
Platforms, it's on probably the bottom right. But while you're presenting, and even if you've got a co-presenter, and you say, and thank you so much for joining us, and here's my email address, what happens is then you've got to stop the webinar. And unless you're really quick on the uptake and you've got your arrow absolutely ready to leave the meeting, it takes one elephant, 2 elephants, 3 elephants, sometimes 4 seconds, right? So the big tip here is just keep smiling. Keep your game face on. Don't have face drop. You've seen it on the news, and and that's it for the news tonight. You know.
That's face drop.
Yeah, face drop. It's like, and thank you very much for joining us, May. It was a great webinar. Oh, you know, and as a producer at the BBC, I remember many times in the studio, the fader going down, particularly on radio. And as the fader's coming down, the presenter's like, that was terrible. And you can hear it. Well, it's like, always wait 3 seconds, just 3 seconds. And 3 seconds is actually quite a long time to wait.
Yeah.
Wait until you're off air before you swear, complain, look grumpy. Because I've heard of all sorts of little comments just as it's been switched off, like, that was.
Absolutely. So now I can see this being very, very useful if I am joining someone else's call.
Yes.
Because if I just keep smiling at the camera, looking at the camera
Yeah.
until they've ended the meeting, what is the suggestion if I'm the one that's hosting the meeting? It's very
Yeah.
hard to find, it's like looking down and finding the button.
Yeah, absolutely. So you need to have a strategy for it. So either you just turn your camera off, so they might have an
Oh,
image there instead. If you turn your camera off, so it's like, thank you so much, whatever you can click first, but just have a strategy for the end
yep.
of the meeting. Or you could say, and we're going to leave. Sometimes what I do, if I'm searching for the leave meeting button, sometimes I say, thank you so much for having me. And as I'm saying that, I'm actually looking for the leave meeting button.
I see. And you just kind of glance down. You don't do one of these.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't stop to press. It's funny because one of my guests on one of my webinars earlier today was a neuroscientist, and she was telling me about how the brain works when it comes to remote meetings, and you can only do one thing at a time. She
Yeah.
suggested not multitasking too much. See, she suggested not trying to do chat and click and absorb content and share and look at the camera and have a rapport with a person.
Yes.
And if you want to have a rapport with the people in your meeting, you've got to be there for them. And so you don't want your attention to be on other items and pressing this and reading this and doing something on your keyboard. So decide what you want to focus on in the meeting and focus on it.
That is marvelous. And I just want to tell you one thing that I have done before, now that you say this end meeting piece.
Yeah.
I have tried to prepare to end the meeting by having my mouse already hovering over the end meeting button. And
Yeah.
then I just touched my mouse and it ended the meeting
Oh
before we
no.
wanted to end the meeting.
You see, and unless you've actually practiced, because practice, that's the only way to do
Yeah.
it. You need how many hours do you need to learn to drive? I think I used up 22 hours worth of driving lessons. I don't know if that's more or less
Ooh,
than most people, but I
yeah.
practiced. I did 22 hours of driving lessons and I passed my test first time. I didn't have any other practice outside my driving lessons. I just went straight for the whole thing. But if you think about that, 22 hours to go from not even knowing how to press the accelerator to driving,
Yep.
it's exactly like that. You just need to practice. That's why you need a co-pilot. You need a co-practice buddy, and you can have fun with it when you're not live on air. And I know from being in broadcasting that when you're live on air, your brain isn't necessarily that relaxed.
No, no.
So learning on the job when you're live is unbelievably stressful. So have a laugh with it, have a practice, and then get the hang of it before you go live.
I love that. So, Esther, this has been marvelous. I think we can all avoid these 3 mistakes and use your 3 super helpful tips. It's about knowing your technology and practicing, dialing in early so you don't miss those key moments in the beginning, and knowing how to sign off. Is that right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I want to encourage all of us to keep learning, keep growing, and keep going.